A few years ago, I ended up working at a remote worksite. The crew I worked with had multiple jobs, one of which was unloading the truck that came in once a week with all of the site's food. The unloading area was at the back of the kitchen and hadn't been designed well originally. It was an uneven gravel ramp that led up to a roughly 4-foot loading dock. In an ideal world, the truck would be able to back up the loading dock and the job would be reasonably easy. However, the ramp also wasn't very wide. There was a dog leg in the run up to it, and also the truck would be at an angle, so moving the pallets of food would be tough. So the workaround was to have a forklift take the food from the truck, drive up the gravel ramp, and drop the food on the dock. When I first got there, we had a forklift operator who had worked with a forklift for years. He was good, like really good. He made it seem easy. This wasn't my first job working around forklifts, and I really appreciated how good this guy was for me. I'm not sure many others, especially management, realized that he was made this short but tricky run in the forklift look way easier than it actually was. He left and management scrambled to get another guy licensed to drive the forklift. This guy didn't have the experience and he struggled. He lost a load off his forks at one point and it was kinda scary. He was a yes man and there weren't many other options, so he persevered. A lot of us were worried it was just a matter of time before he tipped the forklift over the edge of the ramp. The solution would have been to redesign the ramp or at least pave it. The gravel was a large part of the problem. It was a little thick so the tires would spin, a bit off kilter and it would develop potholes. The forklift needed to get a run up to carry speed up this ramp. That's how bad it was. We complained, but the company didn't want to do anything because they were building a new kitchen on the other side of the camp. So this one was going to be decommissioned. However, there had been zero work done on the new kitchen in the 3 to 4 months I'd been there. This remote site was in Australia, and they have some pretty strict health and safety laws there. Companies will often have you fill out cards every day of what we saw that was maybe dangerous. I filled out one for this ramp every single week we had to use it, but they didn't do anything. The system was really there to cover themselves. In other words, you knew it was dangerous, it says it here on the card, so why did you keep doing the thing? While also expecting us to keep doing the thing. How else were we going to get the food inside? However, one of the other rules pretty much gave the right for any employer to tag out something that isn't safe. The company can't overrule this as if they do then something happens, it's on them. These tags are normally used with machinery. In other words, the machinery is broken, can't be used until it's fixed. The tag out system is not really designed for an area. Cue malicious compliance. The ramp is broken/dangerous. I decided I'm gonna tag it out. I collected some cones and ropes and tagged them out. Went straight into the office to tell management what I did. Their faces were priceless. They had a week to come up with a solution as I did this immediately after we'd unloaded the weekly food drop. At first, they told us that from now on we'd have to walk the boxes of food up to the storage areas. This was obviously an attempt to turn the other crew members on me. However, the cook stopped that idea dead. The weather was hot, the majority of the food was chilled or frozen, so we were only so many. There would have been a lot of food waste. So after a day or so, they got to work putting in a paved path for the forklift. It was the bare minimum. It was the bare minimum they would do because they were building a new kitchen, but apparently it cost them $7,000 and pulled guys away from other duties to do it. Needless to say, I was not a popular person, and I heard that some of the management wanted to fire me, but there wasn't anything they could do. I left 2 months later anyway. Yeah, OSH rules, mate. That act has a lot of powers and it's a little pinky. Was an OSH rep before. Our pan sanitizer was not closing properly. Solution was to shoulder check/kick it close. I tag it. Come back an hour later, tag removed. Had a written note, parts not available for 4 weeks, used as before. Oh hell no. OSH helpline, Two officially sanctioned investigators came. They made a beeline to me as the local rep on the floor. Manager goes, OP is busy, I can have a chat. OSH reps, we don't want you, we want OP. OP is OSH rep that is registered on the board. Can you believe it? New sanitizer came in 3 days, was installed and working perfectly. During those 3 days, we actually had an orderly assigned to stand beside the sanitizer, to run bottles and pans, to be sanitized on another floor. Who would have thought that? Also in Australia. Sounds like the mines I work on. Pilbara. None of what you describe surprises me. There was a need for a new rubbish truck. The possibility of getting a better, more user-friendly from a work safety perspective was not chosen. Loading of rubbish bags by hand, the alternative that had safety and possible back injury issues, was chosen. It was cheaper, of course. Not sure how I got this username. FWIW. Next story. A few decades ago, my late grandmother bought a property in a rural area some 30 minutes outside the city we live in. It was meant to be a place for all her children and their children to meet. This property came with a condemned house that she had rebuilt. We didn't live there, but we may have spent many Christmas, summers, vacations, and weekends. Now, from the start, the neighbors didn't like us. I say neighbors, but the nearest house was so far away from ours that even though we could see the house, we would have needed binoculars to see the people on the porch. We never knew exactly why that was. It may be that they saw us as city folk intruding their turf. It may be that they thought we'd been looking down on them. We didn't. It may be the fact that we mostly kept to ourselves and were never really part of the community there. Plus, since our property was in the very limit of the municipality, we were closer to the next town than to the one we technically belonged to. So if we ever had to go to the supermarket or anything, we'd go there, which probably didn't help. Whatever real or imagined offense we committed, these folks held a grudge and retaliated like only people from the countryside can. Over the years, we've seen cows invade our property to feed off our garden and leave some presents behind. The cows apparently ran away from their parcel, came all the way to ours, opened the gate with their hooves, helped themselves to our vegetables, and went back home without forgetting to close the gate again on their way out. The theft of dozens of fruit trees, not the fruits, the whole friggin' trees. And the worst one, a home invasion where they trashed some furniture, drank all the booze, and burned all sorts of stuff in the chimney, including old pictures. Black and white old. From when my dad was a kid. They also left presents in the living room, by the way. The clearest precedent of the story, though, is probably that our next door neighbors legally maneuvered to steal from us a piece of land. Not sure of the exact details, but the gist of it is that they raised a claim in the town hall that the border between our land and theirs was misdrawn, and since it went uncontested for X amount of time, I expect the claim and the proper deadlines were clearly on display in a cabinet, inside a lavatory in a cellar somewhere, behind a beware of the leopard sign. It became legally theirs. Now, I was very young and not privy to certain conversations back then, so I assume there are many more incidents over the years I know nothing about. Fast forward 30 or so years, half of the siblings wanted to sell. There's a lot to that, but it's unrelated to the story. So, cutting to the end, we list the property with an agency and get a number. It's too high for the ones who want to keep the property to buy the others out, so we start showing the property to potential buyers. One in particular looked at the place and said on the spot they were buying it. No negotiation, no anything. Full price. He wanted to build a warden house in the property, and he just wanted to make sure there wouldn't be any issue with the permits for that. So he went to town hall for the inquiries, and this is where the revenge comes in. The moment the clerk finds out which property they're talking about, they immediately tell him it's not worth the price and start trash talking it with a collection of lies and half-truths. The most important one, which I will not detail here, was something that used to be a big-ish problem under certain weather conditions back in the day, but which hasn't happened in 15 years, even under most even under most extreme conditions due to a mix of public measures that mitigated the problem and measures we took to protect our house from it. As a result, the buyer withdrew the offer and the listed price of our property started going down. Now, here's the irony. It went down just enough so the siblings who wanted to keep the property can now afford the price, so we took it off the market and we'll be buying it out from the other half of the family. If they had been a bit cleverer and not wanted to mess us up so bad, they would have gotten rid of us. Instead, we're staying for good. I had a neighbor once in suburbia who had an issue with us for various reasons. Example, a fence that he personally built 40 years prior was about 10 centimeters, 6 inches on our side of the property line, who made a house sale fall through by getting in the buyer's ear. They probably knew his claims were stupid but didn't want to move it back next to the prick. Can't say I blame them. I spoke to him and said, "Wow, you must really like having us as neighbors." He got all confused as to why I would say that and started saying no, and I continued with, "Because you're really trying hard to stop us selling." Suddenly, the issues disappeared. Amazing. Next story. So this happened only a week ago, but of course I'll have to go into the context first. 3 months ago when uni started, I met this guy who was in my class, and at first he seemed really nice, smart, and one of those no-nonsense types of guys, which is just what I like in a friend. But gradually the facade begins to come off, and I see how much of an asshole he is. He constantly made me feel like I was stupid, as if I was an idiot who had the privilege of being spoken to by him. To name a few things that happened, when I was in his car and I commented on his car and how he should park it, he told me that I was smarter than I look. Probably one of the worst backhanded compliments in my opinion. He said this to me on more than one occasion, but my dumbass took that as a compliment. Then he asked me to work with him on the assignment that we were given, and his arrogant ass texted me, "I better get a first," implying that if I'm to help him, I have to get him a first. I didn't like this behavior, so I just ignored him. He wasn't just arrogant and acted entitled to me. We had a group chat with the rest of the class, where at one point he texted, "If anyone has the answers to question X, now would be a good time to share," which I took in an arrogant and entitled way. Then came the day some bitch was talking down to me in class because I didn't react during my TMS experiment. It was a cognitive neuroscience class, and I obviously fought back, and instead of backing me up like a friend, this guy just gave her more material to talk down on me. He later told me that he thought she was obnoxious, and I wanted to tell him, "Then why did you make things worse back there?" But I kept it to myself. The very last straw came when we were at Costa and we had to order. He recommended this chocolate muffin, so I told the barista that I wanted the chocolate cake. I didn't think to call it a muffin because it looked too big to be called one, and she ended up giving me a slice of carrot cake. This is when I'm like, "No, I wanted that chocolate cake," and I pointed which one I was referring to. She then goes, "Oh, that's not a cake, that's a muffin," as if it makes a difference, and he's by my side and starts laughing and goes, "I apologize for her. She doesn't know the difference between a cake and a muffin." And at this point, I'm seething with both anger and embarrassment. We talked until I finished my muffin, and I got up to go, vowing to never speak to him or go out with him again. PSA, even if you do have a friend or someone you know who isn't very bright, it is not your job to make them feel like they are, because that's bad behavior. Since then, every time he texted me, I gave him the deadest replies, until I got tired of his messages and asked my boyfriend for advice, where he told me I should block him, so I did. Fast forward a week ago, he needed help for the last assignment for the class, which he had gotten an extension on and I had already done for the original deadline. I assume he reached out to me because he was blocked. None of his messages would go through. On the group chat, a few other people were stuck on the last assignment, and I tried my best to help them, except for him, of course. At one point in the chat, he must have picked up that I was replying to everyone's queries except for his. So he directs his help me messages at me in the group chat, and I ignore him while still continuing to help the other girls. I'm not sure if anyone ended up helping him, but I'm certainly glad I didn't. Screw you, that's what you get for embarrassing me and making me feel like an idiot. Next story. I've been doing street outreach for a year. Some of my best situations on the job are life and death, and I go to work every day trying to do the best for my clients. That being said, I genuinely don't feel like I have time for meddling coworkers. I work the weekend shift, and every week without avail, the Monday crew complains on me for something. At first, it did start out from mistakes I made. For example, one night some clients had been eating in the back of the work van and there were crumbs I didn't vacuum out. I apologized, and then every Sunday after that, I would vacuum the van. Despite my diligent cleaning, the crumb complaints continued. The final straw was 2 weekends ago when I got an earful from one of the Monday crew that on my shift I had left all of the supplies in the van and hadn't cleaned. Here's the thing, I vividly remember cleaning. Petty revenge number 1. I told my supervisor about this complaint and he went back on the cameras. They clearly show me taking all of the supplies out of the van and cleaning it. I told the complaining coworker I had gone back on the cameras and he immediately started backpedaling and pointing the finger at his work partner. He told me his partner has been the one who's been filling these complaints. Every damn Monday. At this point, I was about 50 shades of done with this bullshit, so I enacted a plan. Every Sunday, I'm gonna do something petty that won't hurt anybody, but will be mildly annoying. Petty revenge number 2. 2 weekends ago, I changed the clock in the work van 45 minutes ahead, so these fools will think they showed up late to work. Petty revenge number 3. Every Sunday, I make sure to adjust the driver and passenger seats all the way forward so that they gotta pull them back before they can get in at the start of their shift. I'm trying to think of some more stuff to do, but the moral of the story is, if you complain about stuff that isn't happening, I will give you something to complain about.